Welcome to Group Practice Revolution, where innovation meets magic. I'm your host, Sarah Buino, and on this show, we're gathering the unicorns of the group practice world, those magical practitioners, owners, and visionaries transforming how group practice works. Together, we're bridging the gap between practice owners and employees to create a better future for mental health care. Join us as we bring together diverse voices from across the field, each sharing their piece of the revolutionary puzzle. Because when innovation meets magic, anything is possible. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Group Practice Revolution. I'm your host, Sarah Buino, and I'm just delighted to have you here today and super excited to share. We have an employee as our guest today. If you are an employee and you're listening to this episode, I want to talk to more employees. I want more of your voices on this podcast. So please, please, please get in touch with me because I want to hear from you. I want to know how we can have more employees giving contributions to the future of group practice. So it is a challenging time in the world, and challenges abound in all sorts of places, including in group practice. So it was really great to hear Sierra's thoughts. And so she is a sort of newer therapist, only been in the field for a couple years. And one of the things we talked about was her choice to go into an internship in private practice and then go straight into private practice after graduation. And we talk a little bit about sort of the new therapist imposter syndrome and how she was really questioning, is the relationship enough in therapy as you sort of build your skills as a new therapist? And we talk also a little bit about the difference between practicing outside of your scope and the discomfort of stretching when you are learning to work with different types of folks. And we get into the nitty-gritty of group practice stuff when we go into what practice owners can do to support brand new clinicians in the group practice space and how transitions in the practice impact employees and what owners can really do to support their employees when things are shifting. And then the last thing we talk about was really what are the special needs and supports and resources that practice owners can provide for their staff. So I'm really excited for you to hear about that. But first, let me tell you about something. If you want to work with me, one thing you could do is we are starting our third round of Authentic Leaders Group in February 2026. So it's just around the corner. And if you are a therapist in any type of leadership position, whether it's supervising, managing, or practice owning, Authentic Leaders is a 6-month incubator type space for therapists to explore leadership bravely and honestly. And like I said, we're going to start meeting February 2026, and we'll be doing both skill building and just supporting in through the process. And one of the benefits that you get if you join Authentic Leaders in this round is you get 1 free year membership to Group Practice Revolution. That's where all the jazz is going to happen. So if you want to know more information or join me, you can go to headheartbiztherapy.com/authentic leaders group. That's headheartbiztherapy.com/authentic leaders group. And you can sign up there. So my guest today, Sierra Waller. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor at a small group practice in Chicago. She primarily works with anxiety, stress, life transitions, and relationship issues. Originally from Colorado, she enjoys spending time in nature when she isn't in the therapy room, and I really enjoyed spending time with her. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Sierra Waller. Sierra, welcome to Group Practice Revolution.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am super excited to have you because you are an employee of group practice, and we do not yet have enough voices from employees. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to share. I feel like I've had some good juicy group practice experiences to pull from.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell folks how we know each other?
Yeah. I think we came to know each other from a random therapist networking Facebook group post for a support group, and Sarah put that support group together and has been facilitating it, but gosh, that's been happening for
This is
almost
2023, the fall or
yeah,
yeah.
coming
Yeah.
up on, like, a couple of years, yeah, and so it has, it's been really nice to have when we first started, I think I was only about a year into my experience as a licensed clinician or provisionally licensed clinician,
Right.
and so it was super helpful for me in the beginning to be hearing from therapists of all different experiences and experience levels, and so, yeah, that's how we've gotten to know each other just over time and through some of the group practice revolution stuff too, and yeah.
Yeah, and I absolutely adore you, and I'm really
Oh,
glad that you're in
thank
my orbit.
you. I, ditto, because I think, I was just telling somebody the other day that I feel like you do such a good job, obviously, coming out of grad school. We focus so much on the empirical and the science of therapy, which is so, so important, but I really have appreciated getting to know you better, and really this you do such a good job of folding in that artful piece and that spiritual piece, that I think, I can tend to be a very structured, logical person or want to stick to the rules, and
Mhm.
so I think it has just been really eye-opening and really growth. I'm, like, really, really helping
Mm.
my growth edge of being like, "Hey, we can incorporate this art piece too."
Oh, thank you. That's really lovely
Yeah,
feedback. I really appreciate
of
that.
course.
Yeah. Well, do you wanna tell folks where you are right now, and then we can start to unpack your group practice experience?
Yeah, yeah. I am at a group practice called Health In Tandem, and it is a small group practice in the Lakeview neighborhood of Chicago. Less than 10 clinicians, if I have my counts right. Lovely group of women, and yeah, we focus a lot on kind of the primary focus is on holistic wellness, so social wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness. We try and kind of hit all of those aspects, and I would say, each of the clinicians really try to embody that in their practice, and yeah, we are, like, small but mighty.
Yeah, and you went straight into group practice out of grad school?
Yes, yep. After
Tell
I
us
was in
about that
private practice.
choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in private practice both for internship and then moved right into group practice, or stayed in private practice when
Oh,
I
both
became
internships were
licensed.
in
Yeah,
wow, interesting.
practicum and internship were at one private practice, group practice, and then applied and after graduating to this. So yeah, I that has been the whole of my experience. Yeah, that choice, that's a good question. I knew that I did not want to start off in some of these more high pressure, high volume, acuity type of settings.
Mhm.
My I think I just knew based on my demeanor and my own reactions to stress and all of those, that, like, being in this place, being in the private practice realm where we were doing more maintenance and growing skills rather than crisis management, or yeah, working with folks, like, at a high acuity level, was going to be a much better fit for me personally. And I both for internship and the group practice that I'm at now are both small practices, and that was
Mhm.
important to me because I, yeah, really valued a lot of the one-on-one time that I got with owners, supervisors, other clinicians. It was very helpful for me to get some of that real time, in addition to obviously the supervision and everything that was happening.
Yeah. Would you do it differently now knowing what you know, or would you make the same choices?
I think I would make the same choices. There is a part of me that maybe would have liked to work in something like community mental health or maybe a hospital setting for that internship year,
Mhm.
just to have the experience, where I think now in the longevity of it all, it was one year, and if I that would have been a good chance to try it on. But I do really I don't regret I don't regret the choice. I do feel like when I moved into being a licensed clinician and practicing after graduating, I did have a I think there was some imposter syndrome and some self-doubt of, "Gosh, did I miss out on this chunk of really important experience?" And to be able to assess for risk and acuity,
Mhm.
but I do think that over my time in group practice, I have had have had opportunities to learn that in a supported environment as well.
Mhm. Can we unpack the imposter syndrome? Because
Yeah.
this is something that I see showing up on the groups a lot, and it's always with new clinicians, most times in private practice settings, and what some of the responses that I see, and actually I got an email from somebody who knows me, and I never responded just because it just came at a bad time and I just did not have the bandwidth to respond. But the email was basically like, yeah, you should be an imposter because you don't know what you're doing yet. And like, you should be humble. And this is all like normal. And yet you're trying to act like you know what you're doing. So, like, this is the hard part of being a new clinician, I think, is it takes time to know what you're doing. And that is normal. So you're not an imposter. You're just a new therapist. And yet you do need to like keep yourself moving so that you learn more. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really appreciate how you just said that, and there's a part of me that's like, "God, I wish somebody would have said that to me as a new clinician." And I think I think this goes back to my I think I had mentioned before that I tend to be a little bit more of I can trend towards the structured, and I like to have a this is how you're supposed to do this. This is the A, B, and C of how it's done.
Mhm.
And especially when I'm feeling unsure or uncertainty of any sort, it that is where I try to move to of, "Okay, I need some sort of roadmap here." And I think especially at the beginning of practicing, I did not have specialized training. I've done more in-depth trainings now to where I can see that I was using some of these tools, but
Mhm.
not quite to the extent or
Mhm.
as skillfully as maybe I know how to do now. But
Yep.
I do think that imposter syndrome, and maybe you can help me kind of explore this a little bit because I think one big thing is we are told, and we know from research that the relational aspect of therapy is so powerful and so important. But I also think that that was really hard for me to maybe swallow as being okay, that's sufficient for therapy
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
like without being looking at that through a critical lens, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Yeah, where I think I was
Mhm.
kind of uncomfortable with this idea of like I do believe therapy is great and can have massive benefits for large amounts of people, and also I was uncomfortable with this sweeping generalization that therapy is good and helpful. And I think that was a lot of where, yeah, as a new clinician, I was very hesitant and I knew that the relationship was important. And I also did not, I would get stuck sometimes.
Yeah. Well, now that you're saying this, I'm completely making this up right now. This is not something I've thought about before, but I think that this is a really good point. Like, we are at a an inflection point in the field where we need to evolve. And I think, like, my conversation with Jeff Levy, if you listen to that, any listeners, go back and listen to it if you haven't, because one of the things that we talked about was, when he started private practice 20 years ago, being out and gay was not a thing. And he did it, and he created a queer practice and really started that in Chicago. And now, where we are in 2025, everyone is looking as a client to match the identities that they have with the therapist, and bringing it back to this idea of the relationship is enough. I actually wonder if we did that research again from this place. which is different now if that would be true.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. It is on one level, but
Mhm.
you're right. It's not enough because what the trends that we're seeing now, at least with younger clinicians, whether it's in group practice or even in private practice, there seems to be an emphasis on validation with the client and less emphasis on accountability. And I think that's also a trend we are just seeing in life. People
Yeah.
want to be comforted because the world is hard, but therapy is not just about comfort. It's about transformation. And last time I checked, transformation is fucking painful. It's messy.
Yeah.
It's really challenging. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think this would be really interesting research to do again, given the world that we live in now.
Yeah. No, I fully agree, and I think I was as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about the balance between me growing as a clinician in whether it's internship or early clinical work of having these moments where I was questioning whether or not I was in within my scope. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
the times it was really difficult or challenging for me to keep moving forward with that question in mind,
Yeah.
where there's a little bit of this, yeah, this dance between ethical practice and
Yeah.
growth as a clinician by working with
Right.
populations or presentations that you haven't seen before.
Right. And this is what I love about you and a lot of the young clinicians that I really respect is you know that. And you have that awareness and you, I'm guessing, brought that to your supervisor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do
And
think a lot of times got the feedback of yeah, we can seek out some other consultation or we're going to consult on it, but we're going to kind of keep moving forward. And I did feel supported in those situations, but I also had lots of questions or lots of uncertainties of how effective I could be
mhm.
with particular clients.
Mhm. Well, and then we can also talk about like the sort of pressure that you might put on yourself to see progress in a certain way, which
Mhm.
also only shifts when you've seen a client for 10 years, like where you're
Yeah.
kind of really you're able to look back and see everything that's changed. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about this though in the realm of group practice specifically because this is
Mhm.
also I think something that group practice owners and employees alike need to really recognize is that like when you hire a less experienced workforce, that means that there is more burden on the business in order to train the people that are coming to you. And so I'm curious, like, what were the things that were really supportive, especially like really early on so that you could begin to feel a little bit more competent? Like what was offered to you?
Yeah, I'm only laughing because I think and my the owner of my practice eventually became my supervisor after there was some like shifts in the practice. So she knows this because we've talked about it, but I came into the practice during a time of transition
Yeah.
and it was two owners, one had moved due to their spouse's job
Mhm.
and out of state and so was no longer as
Yeah.
reachable as yeah as available
Yep.
for clinicians and so I also was one of the first clinicians who was hired and supervised by one of the other clinicians at the practice and it was her first time being a supervisor, my first time being
Mm.
a licensed clinician and so
Mhm.
there was in the transition there was a lot of we are building the plane as we're flying it, and
Yeah.
I think there was nothing wrong with that. I had to be more vocal and advocate for myself when I didn't know the answers to certain questions or didn't know certain procedures. But so when I first started, I did feel a little out to sea and
Yeah.
kind of it was the onus was on me to ask a lot of these questions and
Mhm.
seek out the information that I needed. As time has gone on and some of these transitions shifted and settled and more robust resources came into place, I can confidently say now that I feel extremely supported there. And
Mhm.
yeah, I know that I came in at a time of transition, which I think also happened during internship too, that we were transitioning, they were
Mm.
transitioning management systems, scheduling
Oh
systems,
god,
and
that's a
so,
nightmare.
yeah, we so, yeah, lots of transitions, lots of, adapting on the fly, but, yeah,
Mhm.
that was my initial experience, but I do think the availability of supervisors, owners, that is why I liked the small group practice,
Mhm.
because I had access to the owners, my supervisor, the other more senior clinicians. So I had lots of people to go to as I was looking for these answers.
Yeah. And I another reason I appreciate you, like, I hear you being so kind and so generous to the practice owner, and I can be the voice to step in and be like, "Practice owners, I just want everybody to hear, like, it's normal because, yeah, we're all building the plane as we're flying it. That's just how small business works. But this is where you got to ask for help because the impact on the employees, like, luckily you are somebody who you're very smart, you're very quick, you're very, you are going to go get it if you don't have it. But not every employee has that capacity and those skills. And it's on the owner to know what they can provide and what they can't provide and to be honest about that. And I think also to communicate when the employee might not have an understanding of what they're getting into. That's, I
Yeah.
think, a right use of power of really recognizing and this is like when I work with my consultees, this is what we're working on a lot is like you decided to start this business. You decided to hire these people. You
Mhm.
decided that you're going to, do this stuff. They don't have any choices other than like I can work here or I can work somewhere else. And so I don't say that to admonish your practice owner. I
Yeah.
did this
No, no.
fucking same thing, right? And this whole group practice revolution really honestly part of it for me is a living amends to the harm that I caused as an employer who didn't know what I didn't know and
Mhm.
wouldn't pay for help. I should have done that. So
Yeah.
I say this not to like wag my finger at anybody, but to really just
Yeah.
be honest about how hard this is and the harm that it can cause. And then what happens to the clients, right? Like, again, you're great, you have your shit together, but I've seen a lot of employee or a lot of clients end up getting harmed, slipping through the cracks because the therapist isn't able to show up in a way that they need to without the containment. So all
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
is there too.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I do think that it necessitated some difficult conversations with management when I had first started that
Hmm.
I was I knew they were important to have those conversations, but yeah, they were difficult to have as a new employee.
Yeah. And what a gift. You are a gift. And I'm sure that your practice owner is like, thank God we had Sierra tell us what was not working. Because when you're in the position of power and people don't tell you, then you can't make changes. You can't adapt to it. It's really just dependent on what you're seeing. And so I want all the employees listening to hear like there's a difference between just like bitching about something and saying, hey, we really have to talk about this thing that's not working. And there's a place for bitching too, but like in order to like really make a change in a practice, it is up to the employees to mindfully say this isn't working and here are some thoughts I have about what would work better. How do we figure this out so that it works for the business and it works for us as employees?
Yeah, and I think I had listened to one of the presentations that you had put out on the right use of power, and I think that's
Mhm.
coming to mind. I did not have the words for it then, but yeah, that took some stepping into my
Yes.
power to have that conversation. I did not have the words for it then. It was just hard and anxiety provoking then, but
Right.
to move out of this place of what could I possibly have to add here? I've only been here for 4 or 5, 6 months. But
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And it's that balance of like, as a therapist, I think you have to have, well, actually, I'll back up a little bit. When I was in my internship, literally the first day of internship, I was working in a detox addiction treatment center. And one of the counselors was running a group. And he said to the group, in early recovery, you have to have an equal balance of fear and confidence. Because if you have too much fear, you're not going to do the things you need to do and you're going to relapse. Or if you have too much confidence and you think you know everything, you're going to relapse. And I think it's the exact same thing as a practice owner, as a new therapist, like it pretty much in any situation where we have to be competent and humble at the same time. Like it is such a challenging balance to strike. And I think the only way we can do that is by like really doing our inner work and being more honest with ourselves about where where we are, where other people are, and how all of the things are falling together.
yeah, absolutely. I think that is a beautiful way of putting it, and I think that was what I tried to counter some of that imposter syndrome with, was this idea of
Mhm.
you are well equipped, well prepared, and have a lot to learn and have a lot of growing to do over the course of your entire career. Nobody is
Right.
expecting that was helpful for me. Nobody is expecting you to conduct yourself as a 10, 15, 20-year clinician, 20-year experienced clinician at this stage of your practice.
Exactly. Exactly. And to put this in the group practice realm too, I want practice owners to hear no one is expecting you. Well, that's not true. Actually, everyone is expecting you to know what you're doing. And that's the hard part is that everyone is expecting you to know what you're doing and you owe it to your employees to figure out what to do. That's the right use of power piece. And you are going to be building the plane as you fly it. Like this is just where consultation just can become so important. But everybody thinks we can do it differently and better, but until we figure out how to like step outside of fee for service, I don't think there is a way to do it differently right now. So that's why we're here to talk about like how do we construct something new. So speaking of that, do you have any like dreams, any ideas, anything that you're like, man, I would really love to see if group practices could try this thing out or whatever? Anything come to mind?
It's a great question. I am thinking of when I think about how can group practices be better, I I think a lot about just the support and resources.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the biggest pieces because especially in group practice, we you can feel very it can feel like you're on an island. From the day I was hired, I was had my own room in the office, and you see people in passing in the 10 minutes in between sessions. Maybe you have a little
Yep.
more time to talk because you're on break together, but ultimately there is very little interaction outside of meetings, what have you. And I think
Mhm.
the things that have felt most impactful have been the moments where there was additional support and resources and extended to us as employees to utilize and to kind of make on it this just with the idea of like how can we ease what's going on for you here, and that's some of the changes that I have really appreciated over my time at my practice
Mm.
is there have been lots of changes to the practice to make it easier for us to do what we need to do on a daily basis, especially because
Mm.
we're expected to see a much higher volume of clients than maybe a solo practitioner would. And so
Mhm.
having things be put in place to make our lives easier, I think that's really stuck with me and resonated with me as an employee.
What are those things?
Yeah. For I I think this might be a unique one, but for example, when I initially started, we weren't using, and like payment is I think one example that I had where we weren't using our management systems payment, and we were using
Oh.
like a third party app for payment because of
Mm.
the processing fees. But so
Yep.
then for every session, we would have to go and submit payment through an app. And we did a lot of tracking in an Excel sheet of our own, weekly appointments. And that, I mean, it took a lot of time. It did.
Mm.
And, when I started, that was just practice norm. And
Yeah.
over time, it evolved to where we're like, okay, it is a higher processing fee, but it is easier for you guys to just be able to click add payment. And that was
Exactly.
truly
Mhm.
a huge one where it's a small thing, but it added some ease to our day. And then evolved even more to be like, okay, the person who is in charge of billing is the one who is going to keep track of that Excel spreadsheet of your
Yeah.
appointments, as long as you make sure that they're updated on your end
Mhm.
in the scheduling system.
Mhm.
So that was another thing taken off of our plate that allowed us to do more of the work that we needed to do.
Got it.
And I also think flexible time off policies. For example, I really appreciated, rather than, okay, if you're taking a day, you get your in Chicago it's like the 10 days for the year as of a couple years ago.
Yep.
And rather than it be, oh, you just, okay, you take one of your 10 days, the owner shifted it to where you can take like hour by hour. So you have a
Mm.
minimum requirement, and if you're 4 hours short of that for that week and you're going on vacation, you're only using 4 hours of uh, that 40 hours of PTO rather than
Mm.
like a
Mhm.
full day. And so that was
Mhm.
really, I think that meant a lot to us too, or them the owner negotiating a higher, I mean, granted, obviously it's not a massive bump, but reaching out to insurance companies and negotiating for a higher rate for clinicians, to just, I mean, it just feels like you're being advocated for. So I think
Mhm.
those are three big ones that stick out that have shifted during my time at my practice, and like I said, have just added some ease into the day so that I feel more able to show up and focus on client interaction and, yeah, the
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
stuff.
That's really interesting because I hadn't really talked with somebody yet about the policy and procedure part and just how some of these small tweaks can, like you said, make a really, really huge difference in the clinician's day. And I was literally yesterday just talking with one of my consultees about a similar thing. And she was like, oh, yeah, I use this spreadsheet and I'm hiring a new person. Should I put them on the spreadsheet? And I was like, why are you using a spreadsheet when you have the EMR? You can do it all in there. And she was like, oh. Like, yeah, let's take a look at like, yeah, maybe we've done it this way because somebody once, when we started, told us that this is the way to do it. But like, as the business grows and changes and evolves, and there are more people involved and there are more processes, like it can really
Mhm.
start to weigh people down. So that's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. That, and one more is coming to mind if I can share, is
Yeah.
the switching over of our health insurance, where there, instead of it just being, here's the policy that's available, as a practice talked through, here's the current policy that we have, here are some of the options if we switch health insurance providers, and
Mm.
who has what opinions. Basically, I mean, taking it into account, not saying that we're able to make everybody happy, but at least hearing out everybody on what's really important to them, which providers or doctors are they seeing, that they would be
Mhm.
really sad to lose if we switched insurance providers. And so I
Mhm.
did really appreciate being able to, yeah, really voice some of, have a voice in that major decision, that like company decision.
Mhm. And practice owners, if you're listening and you don't know about the insurance people, go talk to a broker at the insurance people because Al knows her shit and it's just they're fucking fantastic. So,
That's who we
absolutely.
used.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Anything else that comes up about like what you would like to see for the future, what you think employees need? Anything
Yeah.
else?
I I think in an ideal world, I think a lot about, assistance in kind of getting to where you would like to be. And I mean that in a sense of, yeah, if your goal is to go on to create your own practice, where rather than that being a taboo subject or something that you feel like you can't share,
Mhm.
I think, yeah, really, it's a really, I think, beautiful opportunity to have some practicing, right, yeah, submitting your own claims, or practicing reaching out to the insurance company to ask
Mhm.
why a claim got denied, and having some opportunities to dabble in these areas of the practice that you might not be able to, or that you might not have much exposure to. But I think that on that, I think about that as kind of this higher level of supporting clinicians on their way to wherever their ultimate goal is. Um, yeah, I know that that's very much individualized and could be very difficult to do, but I do think that, yeah, open conversations about
Mhm.
clinicians' future goals, and kind of thinking about ways that, even in small ways, that we can kind of facilitate exposure to the types of things that might be helpful for
Yeah.
them. Yeah, that, and I guess probably the only other thing that I think has come up a couple of times is obviously when caseloads drop. I know that I have felt kind of at the mercy of whatever the practice's marketing
Mhm.
strategies are, and also not really knowing how to facilitate facilitate incoming referrals, or getting more referrals, or getting an influx of inquiries. Um, and yeah, I feel like I just kept seeing kind of the same advice being given, whether it was on the networking groups or whoever, of like, do more networking with other therapists, and try
Mhm.
and reach out to people who maybe they have wait lists, or so I do think that, yeah, I that's kind of more of a larger industry. I know I've seen lots of
Mhm.
conversation around, the impact of these larger companies,
Mhm. The
um,
VC. Yep.
the VC-backed companies, that and how they're having an impact on, influx of inquiries. But I do think that, yeah, that was kind of a that's there's been a couple of times in my experience where I've really wanted to increase my caseload and make a little more money, and really felt like I just had to hurry up and wait, and like I didn't have much
Mm.
uh autonomy, or ability to do that. And I think obviously that comes with that's kind of a larger question, for the field rather than practice owners specifically. But that is one thing that I think has been an ongoing ebb and flow over the course of my experience.
Well, it's connected to what you said about, knowing like I want all group practice owners to hear that most people will leave you. The whole thing with group practice is people do it so that they can get a stepping stone to their own practice. There are a few handful of people that will never leave you, but most people will leave you. And so
Mhm.
entering into an employee relationship with somebody knowing that that's probably what's going to happen is the best gift you can give your employees. And so I think you're exactly right, Sierra. There's so many opportunities, whether you get into leadership and you get to like, do some of these things, or like at Head Heart, I know I always told people like marketing is a shared endeavor. Like I'm going to market the practice. People know who I am, but people need to know who you are. They'll trust you because I say that you're cool, but like you got to go get your own people. And so here's how we do it. And so I know at Head Heart now they have like little marketing groups where people talk to each other and like give each other tips, and like here's this networking thing. Like there's so many ways to do it. So I think those are beautiful
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, our time has come to an end, but I just adore you so much. And again, I really, really appreciate, and employees, if you're out there and you have something to say, I really want to hear it. And, Sierra is paving the way for the rest of y'all come hang out with me and let's figure out how we do this thing together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really I appreciate I get like I love these conversations. I can feel it in you too. But yeah, that they get me I'm like excited about where, like you said,
Yeah.
the possibilities of where it could move and shift to. So I appreciate the facilitation there.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much for watching Group Practice Revolution. To learn more about today's guest, you can visit us at www.grouppracticerevolution.com. Thanks so much to the team at Jules Creative Marketing for video editing, to Jordy Matthews for our incredible logo on the album art, and to David Ben Porat for our theme music. Until next time, bye-bye.